He's from the thing, yeah.
At the time, I think there was quite a
there was, yeah.
But,
but he went off and, like, I mean, he was after proving, but all these people, like, it's so hard to get anywhere with music. And kind of like, as well, it's people just like different fucking things, and people are influenced by different things. People, you're influenced by everything around you with it. Like, of course, there's always going to be people that are going to try and exploit kind of things that are popular or whatever. And if they can, who fucking cares? She'll listen to it.
I suppose don't buy it. Yeah, that's it. If you protest against it and all the rest, but yeah, but that's, I mean, that is the thing. Like, I mean, sort of Eminem would have grown up around that kind of scene and all the rest. So I mean, like, it is as much his really as anybody else's. You know, who's to deny his experience?
But also, when the House of Pain came out, there was no kind of like thing about, oh my god, because it was just. It was like, I know everyone known for like Jump Around and stuff, but if you listen to like House of Pain's first and their second album as well, it's fucking in your face.
Yeah.
So.
And that's not to detract from anybody else's experience, and sort of like not to say like, oh well, you can't have this one thing for yourself or anything like that. Of course, you know, that's beyond the pale.
Yeah. Much, yeah. But that's kind of like very, very brief history of that. And now we're going to get into communication.
Denied. I bang.
After going through the history of the Beastie Boys and the birth of white boy rap, and now we're going to have I won't say a deep dive, because there's not much to get into about Ill Communication, which I think is probably, well, for me it's their best album, but that could have been just because I was a teenager when it came out. And as well, it's that seminal 90s album. I think a lot of people, when they're talking about the 90s, that this will always come up in like their top 10 or definitely top 50 albums of the 90s, because it had that weird mesh of everything just came together at the right time. And it does define the 90s, even down to the music videos. It defined kind of like people's fashion sense, and then kind of like it influenced a lot of the way music videos were done afterwards, and Spike Jones got really, really big from it. But I suppose just before we get into it, kind of like for people who mightn't have listened to the rest of the podcast, you fucking savages, the whole thing with the Ill Communication would have been their fourth album. First album on Def Jam, they basically ended up becoming a very brief history, kind of like what we just talked about. They ended up not selling out, but kind of like they were young, put under pressure. First album was like seen as a bit of a joke, what they were doing, and then people didn't really get the joke, and they ended up becoming a parody of themselves. Then they went off and spent loads of money in studios, did Paul's Boutique, which was like critically acclaimed, but no one fucking bought it. So then they went off and did their own thing. And oh my god, I can't remember. And then that album came out.
It came out.
Yes, and then they kind of like they ended up getting kind of good at what they were doing. And Check Your Head, fucking why can't they? And they did a lot of work on Check Your Head, and then they came back very, very quickly after touring on Check Your Head and did Ill Communication, which is, and
you were
at
saying
the time,
you think that's your favourite of their albums, is it?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt, it's one of my favourite all-time albums, because the whole thing
would you been when you were listening to this first? Like, was it just
15? I think 15.
So a very long time ago.
Yeah, like
yes.
Yeah.
94. But it's like what they did on this was their first, because with the hip hop world, like the Beastie Boys originally a hardcore punk band, but they never really got far with thing Ill Communication, License to Ill. Like exploded them, and then they went off and they went on like a journey really into kind of like becoming musicians. And with Ill Communication, instead of being heavily reliant on, like most hip hop was, on samples and stuff, they decided to go back to the roots and start playing musical instruments and mixing with things. But they were listening to a load of different types of music at the time, because they were saying themselves they'd keep going out buying records, looking for samples on it. And it exposed them to a lot of different music. And as well, because they owned their own studio, they didn't have to rush things. Like, they weren't like paying $1,000 an hour to go in recording. So they went in, and I don't know, you might say something different now, but I think you can hear through the album that it's like people having a good time and enjoying working on an album and collaborating with different people on it, and it sounds fun.
Yeah.
I think it just comes off it.
I didn't actually know that they, didn't have to pay, obviously, to record, but it kind of does definitely come through in their music, where they really enjoyed it, and it doesn't feel as if any of it was rushed. It feels like they took their time, and they really put a lot of work and fun and kind of effort and love into it, really.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, this is because they went from being commercially successful with their very first album. They were touring the whole time. They just got burned out. They were young. They went off and they kind of like developed into serious art. Not that they weren't serious artists, but like they found their own sound. They found their own thing. They're pioneers with a lot of this stuff. And it is like, even like you look at videos of when they were recording in the studio, they had the skate kind of thing, a half pipe, and basketball thing set up, and it was like a hangout space. So basically, just getting
fun.
stoned, and and as well, it was, I suppose, them developing as well into more kind of like, as well for hip hop kind of. Well, hip hop I think was always like a bit ahead musically and kind of like definitely lyrically, where to some of the stuff, like there was a lot of like New York hip hop stuff from the start that was really kind of like political minded, and like just fantastic, and as well kind of like not just kind of like ahead musically, but like that lyrically. And I think they started bringing that into their world with stuff like, one of the things that you'll always hear about the Beastie Boys is that they used to, when they had that frat boy image, that they were like, oh, disrespecting women. And then kind of like on Sure Shot, they had the thing. Now, it seems really corny now, but at the time for him to come, I want to say a little something that's long overdue. The disrespect to women has got to be true to all the wanderers and the sisters and the wives and friends. I want to offer my love and respect to the end. That was massive at the time, because it was like a hip hop.
You don't hear that when people are
at the time. It was
rapping.
like, it was all kind of like, oh my bitch, oh fucking bitch, this bitch, that bitch, probably still is. But it was like gangster hip hop or gangster rap was kind of becoming the like big, so that's what people associate with. Most hip hop wasn't like that at all, but it was a big thing for them to come out. And there was stuff like later on in it where they were kind of like, people, there was, I think they were playing a festival with the Prodigy, and they turned around and they said to the Prodigy, do you have to play Smack My Bitch Up at it? Because like, we just have a little bit of a problem. What we think, it's like, it's not great for people, you're not putting across a great image. And the Prodigy were like, fuck ye, you're fucking hypocrites. And they were like, well, I'd rather be a hypocrite than be wrong all my life, kind of a thing. Exactly. Which I thought was,
you learn as you grow.
Yeah, it sums them up. But anyway, me blabbing all that, it's a bit of a background on kind of like ill communication. So what did you think of it? Because I presume this was your first
foray into the Beastie Boys.
Yeah, it would have been for me. Like, of course, like as you listen to this, like I think most people would have been familiar with at least one song off it, Sabotage, which has kind of jumped to heights that even the rest of the album hasn't, in like kind of mainstream media and whatnot, utilising it in songs and TV and whatnot.
Pop culture just seeped into it, yeah.
Exactly. So like if like I would have heard like that song and maybe a couple others of the Beastie Boys, but as you said, I wouldn't have been quite into them as well, especially as much as you are, Wayne, before this. But no, I really enjoyed it now myself. Like from the get go, from like the first song, Sure Shot. True, it just it grabbed me. Like first one, I didn't really know how it felt the first time I listened about it. Now I will say I was kind of listening to it going, okay, like I didn't dislike it, but I was like digesting it. And then
I think it was after the third time we listened to it that we both kind of turned around and were like, yeah, I like this.
Well, I knew for a fact then, but like even after the first listen, what I found funny is, we were talking about previously that one of the things I like sometimes is when an album, has a kind of a theme or a tone going through it. And when you first listen to this album, it seems like each song is similar but disparate, and kind of they went off and they were experimenting, and there was to a degree. But the more you listen to it, I found the more you can see like the patterns and the similarities between the songs, and like you just start it just starts kind of melding into one. Almost, it feels like almost one song that just keeps going, but not in a bad way. Not that way at all. It's quite enjoyable, and you end up like just listening to it. You're like, how long have I been listening to this? Oh, it's almost over. When did that happen?
Yeah, and to me it kind of felt like one big long story almost, that each song kind of had a nice ending and a nice kind of fluidity into the second song.
Yeah, like a chapter in a book.
I really enjoyed this album. I'd never really listened to the Beastie Boys before, same as kind of what Mark said in a way. I'd heard maybe one or two songs, I think, before. I'd heard Sabotage and Eugene's Lament, but the other songs I wasn't really familiar with. But I'm glad to say that every single song on the album was actually made it onto my Spotify playlist. So
Jesus, I think that's a first.
I think this is the first time that we've reviewed an album that I'm actually like, yeah, I absolutely loved it. I was listening to it last night when I was falling asleep. Minute I finished work, threw it on again, just absolutely loved it. Specifically, I think my favourite one was Sure Shot and what was the Flute Loop. I was about to say Fruit Loop there. Flute Loop. Those were my two favourites, I think.
They are, like, I mean, they're killer songs. Like, they're absolutely, and I'm thrilled that you really liked it, because I was like, nah, they're not going to like
I loved
this
it
at all.
Yeah, as I said, like when I first started going, I was like, well, I know Sabotage, so I think that was one of the things that made it a little take me a little bit of time to get into it, because I was expecting the entire album to just be
like that,
yeah. Even though that's more kind of it's just one area of what they were trying to explore or kind of talk about, and even like you can see that when you look at the music video, which is a very good music video in and of itself.
Fantastic.
It's a shame that like a lot of times now, like a lot of music videos are just like a person, like they're very formulaic now. They don't really experiment or play around with them. It's just like, I'm at a pool singing, or I'm here doing this.
It seems a little bit too PC these days, in the sense that they can't just have a bit of fun, and you know, there's too much structure, I think, to videos and music videos these days. Whereas I think from, like, obviously the start of music videos up until I would say the late 90s, correct me if you think I'm wrong, there was like more of a loose kind of feel to it, where the artists themselves got to structure it.
Well, even if the artists didn't, the kind of the directors that had come in or that also wanted to experiment. They didn't just get like someone from the studio who like just took out a cookie cutter mold and just stamped it.
Yeah.
Like, I remember seeing a YouTube video by, I think it's a YouTuber, Tom Scott, where he basically made a formulaic music video, like, and just had like random like pop loops going over it, and he's like just saying, and then we do this and then we do that, just to take the piss out of how much of a cookie cutter it can become. And it's the best way to see it is when you see it with pop songs and all that. But like even some rock bands or metal bands nowadays,
it's just people playing. Yeah,
it's just the same thing over and over again. Like,
see all that, it's fucking YouTube, fucking kind of like algorithms that they kind of go, oh well, we notice that people like watch these, and it's people watch those ones the most, because they're the fucking same things that you're doing the whole. So of course they're going to.
Yeah, people just get fucking, I don't know, sort of Pavloved into watching the same shit.
Yeah,
over
and like, I
over.
mean, then they say, oh well, we can't spend money on expensive music videos. That fucking Sabotage was shot for absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I mean, Fight for Your Right to Party was a home video, basically.
Yeah, it was. They shot it in their fucking flat.
Yeah,
it's funny. A lot of music videos actually do seem to have a fairly low budget, but a lot of fun.
That's the thing. And I mean, that's, I suppose, sort of the early days of MTV and all the rest, and bands kind of, they were trying to they approached the videos as another piece of their art. It was like, let's make a mini movie, let's do something fun with this.
It was all new, and it was a promotional thing, whereas now it's like, people just stream it anyway, what's the point of
exactly, just tack on some shit, let's just have some images to go over the music.
But that's a
like,
topic for another day. Now
trying to distance itself from that part. It's like, hey, you don't have to watch the video, you can just listen to YouTube music, just pay us a subscription. And you're like, no, why would I pay a subscription for a shittier service than any other music service out there?
But even with Sabotage, what happened? Sabotage got nominated because, like, I don't think it's really a thing anymore, but the MTV Music Awards were massive, like, in the 90s. And it really, like, was a big get-together, and they were normally quite fun, and, like, there'd always be some controversy at it. But the controversy the year that was nominated was that it was fucking Michael Stipe. My God, what kind of... R.E.M. won the video for Losing My Religion, and when they were going up to accept it, there was, I think it's Mike D does, or maybe it was MCA. They have an alternative kind of character called Nathaniel Hornblower, who they've credited as directing all the videos, and he went up and did basically fucking Kanye West on it, going, "Oh, I think Spike Jones should have won for this," and all that, and got a score off.
And then Mike Stipe goes up with these fucking poker up his arse, going, "Yeah, well, shut up, and fuck off," kind of a thing. Yeah.
But like, I mean, that's it.